All right, Chad Brendel here with Cincinnati head coach Luke Fickell. And Coach, let's talk about the important stuff first. Everybody's worried about you taking other jobs. Is one of those jobs potentially TikTok star? There's a lot of money in that job.
Well, I don't think that mine's going to go very far. So we like to try to stay in our strength zones, and that would probably not be a strength of mine, obviously. So we'll kind of limit that to maybe one show.
One take, though, right?
One or two, but it wasn't me that kind of messed that up. So I'm not saying who it was, but it might have been the guys in the front. But it wasn't me.
But that's recruiting stuff, right? Like, it's fun, and it's something that
It is. It is. It's also, I mean, there's a sense of it too that, I mean, you got to take yourself out of your comfort zone. I mean, you ask your players and a lot of things you do to, get out of their comfort zones and figure out the things that they got to do to be better. And sometimes us as coaches got to get out of our comfort zones, whether that's to show people you can, whether that's recruiting or the kids on in the program right now.
What's the response been in the halls? Have they been giving you a hard time about it?
It's more at home than anything. So
Your kids?
My kids more. My daughter probably is the biggest critic. So she said,
you got to loosen up your
there's
shoulders.
some things I got. That's not the only thing. I guess not supposed to hop when I mop. I guess I don't know. That sounds like a Dr. Seuss kind of ism, but. I think that I'll be okay because I don't know that I'll be doing it a whole lot anymore.
Everything that happened over the past month or so aside, how quickly was that focus turned back to spring football and getting this thing? Because you've got a talented team coming back and high expectations, obviously.
Yeah, spring ball can't get here fast enough. And it's not just me, it's everybody in the program. And more so up here with the coaches, because there was a lot of things that were going on. I think in the last month and a half, not just with me, but with these guys, and whether it was them individually or things that they could have done if they moved from here. So a lot of those things are difficult. It's difficult on everybody, not just our players, but families and things like that to get back into the groove of the things, football in general. Spring ball for the coaching staff and myself can't come soon enough.
When you talk about expectations, an 11-win season, but you didn't beat UCF to get into that conference championship game. Then last year you get in, or Memphis. Well, I'm talking 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And then last year you don't beat Memphis to win the conference championship, but you made it there. Is the next step
that's
AAC championship?
That's the most difficult step, and I think that's one of our focuses this entire offseason is, how do you take that from good to great? And it's not as difficult to go from 4 wins to where we are. To be honest with you, everything was to go up. Finding a way to take that next step is the most difficult step. Some people would say, hey, going from 4 wins to 11 wins, or even just trying to change over the things that you've changed over culturally, atmosphere-wise, is difficult, and it is, but not as difficult as it is to take that final step to get us to that idea of being great.
Is this any more special for you this year because there are some kids that are your seniors that you haven't had that really yet?
I don't know if I'd say it's special. I mean, it's hard because that first year, the Corey Cunninghams and the Jalen Miners, those guys are special too. You just didn't get to spend as much time with them.
Right.
I think it's just different to have some guys you finally had for 4 years. And I just mean that in your relationships with them. So do you say it means more? You hate to say it means more. I just think that there's a different kind of relationship over an amount of time. You've sat in a lot of these kids' homes, so you know their families a little bit better than you do in those first 2 years. But I know it's still going to be difficult based on all those things. And I think that the relationships is what we truly believe can give us a chance to take the next step that we haven't been able to do in the first 3 years.
How hard was it to say goodbye to Mike Warren, but also how much of a sign of it is where this program is headed, that he's the first ever guy to be in a position to declare early for the NFL draft?
So I think it's good. I mean, obviously we hope the best for him. I hope it all works out right now. And I mean that in the immediacy. It'll work out for Mike because Mike's a football player and he's a hard worker.
Right.
How it works out in the immediacy of where he gets drafted, I think will be, difficult, or we'll tell a lot of the kids in the program. I think, but the thing is it's got a lot more guys with their minds spinning, and that's not a bad thing. I think one of the great things is having an expectation. It's knowing what it's going to take and then being committed to doing it. And to have someone within your program to do it. I'm not saying we haven't had guys go to the NFL, but even have the opportunity to leave early. I think it puts a heightened awareness for our guys, and I think it maybe gives them a little bit of a shot in the arm that they don't have to wait till their senior year if they do the things they need to do.
Speaking of guys in the NFL, Josiah DeGuara, you didn't recruit him, but it almost, to you, did it feel like you kind of did, because you guys seem to have developed a really good togetherness, and how special was it to see what he was able to do at the Combine?
To see where he's come from when we first walked into it, and I don't mean that it was us. It was a decision by Josiah more than anything. What he's done, just kind of changing over and completing himself. He was always a good athlete, obviously a quarterback out of high school. But to become the complete player he has in the last 3 years, and in particular last year and a half, I think he's got a bright, bright future. It's exciting. It's exciting for everybody in our program. I think the thing you love the most is it's an example to those guys. Different than even Mike Warren. Mike came in and as a young guy played right away.
Right.
Josiah, even when we came in, was a guy that kind of had to find his niche, develop a lot of things, through the weight room and onto the football field. That's what, to me, is going to be who we are for the most part. You're going to have guys who are going to come in and have to develop maybe in that first year or two to really reach their full potential. And I think for guys to see what it is that he's done is way more valuable than anything that we can tell them.
Looking to spring, obviously we always start at quarterback. Dez is the incumbent and has started and won a lot of games, but how open is the door for Ben Bryant to challenge him? And is it an open competition? Where are you at for spring?
There's no doubt. I think that one of our whole objectives of the spring is to create that healthy competition and keep it for the rooms that have it. And I think that, let's be honest, obviously Desmond Ridder is our quarterback, and he has done a phenomenal job in the last 2 years. But the only way that Dez is going to go from good to great is to be challenged. And I'll be quite honest, that's where Dez's greatest asset is in his ability to compete, his ability to be put in those situations. And the only way that's going to happen is if Ben continues to do what it is that he's done and be a true option for us, because he brings some things to the table that not a whole lot of people can do. And I mean, at moving the ball and making decisions and the way he prepares. So it's going to be a great opportunity for both. And it's even greater opportunity for our program to see what a healthy competition looks like to make everybody better.
Wide receiver, some turnover in that room. The reinforcements to fill those spots are on the way, but they're not here yet. How much of an opportunity is it for maybe some guys that are looking to increase their playing time to really take advantage of this spring before the new arrivals get here?
That's what spring's for, and in particular the wide receiver position, because there's a lot of guys that, have got some experience, little experience, maybe even experience on the field, but maybe not catching the ball or making the plays that they want to make. So this spring is going to be a big time for them. It's not like those aren't the guys that we expect to play next year, because it is. If we're counting on guys that are coming in as freshmen, there's going to be a lot of growth that's going to be needed to be done. So for us and our program, especially for that unit, this spring is going to be huge. And to see those guys develop, not just the ability to make plays, their ability to understand the offense, to be able to know the what's and the why so they can play faster, be more aggressive, and then develop that connection with the quarterbacks.
Running back Jerome Ford joins that room. It sounds like Dokes might be a little limited in the spring, and McClellan still not. Probably could go, but no point in risking that. But guys like Ford and Ryan Montgomery and the freshman whose name is escaping me, you're going to have a couple guys that have an opportunity to get a lot of touches.
We are. Well, I think that
Ethan Wright.
Ethan Wright. Yeah, so Ethan's a guy that can play a lot of different positions. Obviously, he's a tailback right now, but it's going to be a really good spring for those guys. I mean, Jerome is going to be new, and more than anything, it's on Dokes and Charles to make sure he understands the culture of the things and how we do them, regardless of wherever any of those guys came from. The great thing for Ryan is obviously he's been in for a year, and then the ability for those three guys and a fourth guy to get in the mix of just taking some reps in the spring. It's going to be really, really good for them. But I think the key is still that we have, the Dokes and Chuck can be the kind of the leaders of that group, leaders of that room, making sure the culture with Coach Enos as well, being new to what it is that we do. We got to make sure, and that's kind of the heat I've put on, those kind of guys right there to make sure that they're the ones that are still maybe not taking every rep, maybe not able to be in full live contact, but they're going to be the examples of the culture and the things that we really want.
How has Ford adjusted so far?
He's been great. He's been great. I think obviously getting the news of being eligible is going to be a really shot in the arm for him. I think, anytime those guys are going through those situations, not knowing makes it difficult.
Yeah.
So you've seen a little bit of a bounce in his step. You've seen a little bit of a relief on him. But spring ball is going to be new and different, and I think it's always a challenge for those guys that are new to the program. Not as much of even the freshmen it is the transfers, because sometimes there's an expectation. Sometimes there's even a way that they've done it in the past. It's going to be new. It's going to be different. He's just got to trust and believe in us, and he's going to provide some value for us somewhere.
Tight end, obviously, without Josiah, that's a different looking room. But you've got some veterans. You've got Bruno. You've got two younger, talented guys like Lenny and Josh, and it's going to be an interesting.
Singletary.
Yeah,
there's it's still a group that when they walk out there on the field has what you're looking for. They have length. They have some size. They've got some uniqueness. I mean, they've played a lot of football. There's some guys that can do some different things. So right now, it's still probably going to be one of the strengths of our team. How we use them, how many of them we use at times will be unique. But I think Bruno obviously has done it for a while. Leonard Taylor has grown immensely, and I mean that even in the last 6 months, just physically, his body and what he's able to do for us. Josh has still been a little bit banged up. That it'll be really interesting to see how much he can do in the spring football and all through the summer, and then to mix those new guys in as well is going to be. There's depth there, and then even with the lack of depth right now at wide receiver, those guys are going to be asked to do a lot in the spring.
Speaking of depth, offensive line. Looks like you're trending towards almost having some.
from where we were even in bowl practice, being very difficult to even run a second group. And it's hard to get better as a team and as a program when you can't get a lot of those young guys work. So there's definitely, we're going to have a 3 deep in the spring, which is unique for a lot of places. So there's going to be a lot of really good work because, we've got some depth at the D-line still. And it's going to be what's going to give us a chance to have really competitive practices all spring.
How much does just having a left tackle, change where everything's slot? Because when Dino Boyd came in, all of a sudden, all the pieces fit into the puzzle. And is that similar to James Hudson?
It is. And I think that's what we were hoping for last year as we had to, kind of fight through a lot of the waiver stuff and asking then Ferg had to move over there. Just not knowing, and obviously there's things can happen, injuries and things like that, but that's where I think it put us on a little bit of the defense, throughout that entire, I'm not just saying spring, but even summer on the offensive line. But now going in, having, really, to be honest, a core nucleus of 2 tackles and a center with Hudson and Harper and Jakari, give us a chance to really find the pieces that are going to fit in between them, and even guys are going to challenge them to be what our program is based on, an offensive line-driven program. I think we're working that way.
Guards got to be fun too, because there's a lot of guys fighting for those guard spots.
There's a lot of opportunities for those guys, and obviously health is going to be a little bit with getting Coop back and Woodside and some of those guys, and Dylan O'Quinn and Vinny McConnell, and so to find a way to move those guys in, let them compete, find out what the best 5 is going to be. I don't know that we'll know that coming out of spring, because there's going to be some great competitions and some guys are going to be a little bit dinged up. But for the first time, I think we're going to say you're going to have 10, 11 guys that you feel really comfortable to be able to play up front there.
I've heard good things about John Williams, too.
A young guy that's going to, he's going to pick it up fast. He's a very intelligent kid. When the strength of the game is what's going to be unique. But as my old coaches say, if they'll bite as a pup, it's a good sign. And just in the short amount of time, there's a lot of really good things that he's shown us.
It's very rare to have an entire position group come back, and especially a position group that was as good as your defensive line last year. You return all 8 guys, and then you've got a couple young guys that I saw in bowl practices that look like they're hungry to crack into that rotation as well. That's an incredible luxury, is it not?
It is, and I think for the first time now we're going to have a little bit more size mixture. Mm-hmm. I think we hadn't sometimes had the size, maybe just even mix some guys in there. So I think we've got a little bit of unique. We obviously got the 8 guys back. We got some young guys that are going to provide something a little bit different. Whether it's size being wide or size being some length. We're really going to be able to mix it up. And I'd like to say you want to play 8 guys, but it could be closer to 10 guys.
Were you? I don't want to say surprised because I don't think that's the right word, but how impressed were you with how they handled last year, replacing the guys that they had to replace, and from game one they didn't miss a beat. They stepped right in. I
think that was the highlight of our team, and it's not easy because everybody wants to play or start, and us to having the ability to play a mixture of guys was different. We said we wanted to do that, but obviously before with Cortez and Cope, it was a little bit tougher to mix as many guys in.
You get 2 NFL guys, you keep them on the field,
yeah,
right?
you got to find the balance, but those guys did a really good job, not just playing, but being the unselfish things that we ask them to do, especially even moving down to playing a lot more 3-man front, which makes it difficult in that room just based on the dynamics of how many reps are out there, who's going to get them, who's going to get those opportunities. But what they're providing for us, even coming back, they're gonna make it difficult on those young guys to get any reps. But there again, we're creating that competition that's going to give us a chance to be better even in the future.
Linebacker Brian Wright gone, Perry Young gone. 2 guys you relied on for leadership, emotion.
Yep.
How tough are those guys to replace, and how do you feel like you're positioned to replace them going into the spring?
Well, that's probably going to be the one spot in the spring that we really got to come out figuring out how those things are going to mix up in there. Who's going to kind of take the bull by the horns? Who's going to be the, I'm not just saying the leader of the defense, because there's a lot of guys that are coming back that can be leaders, but, those 2 inside guys do a lot, try to take the pressure off the guys up front in some ways, making the communications to the guys in the back. So if there's any big kind of competition or what you got to know coming out of spring, I already told you, I don't think we'll know who the combination of the 5 guys up front offensive line, and I'm okay with that. We got to be able to come out of the spring and know who at least those 2, 3, 4 guys that we're going to hang our hat on inside are going to be.
Looking at how happy have you been with what you've seen from Wilson Huber as he moves into that role? DeBlanco, Beavers, maybe Brody Engel. Who are you looking at as the...
So those inside guys, that's kind of where it is right now with a lot of those guys. But, you don't know how, those things could be mixed up with our sniper and dollar position that, had the Jarrell Whites and the Holloways and the, I don't want to say Pony Boy, but Pony Boy as well. So there's guys that kind of get a mix in there too that have played some Will, could play some Mike, and that's why I say that mixture of those guys is what we're trying to figure out. I know what Huber can do as a football player. Even in bull practice, he was playing a different position. Though. He was playing a little bit more outside as a big physical piece and played in the game. Moving inside is a lot different. So there's a lot of reps to be had in the spring, and that position right there are probably the ones that need the most.
You mentioned a guy that I saw him a couple weeks ago on campus, and I almost didn't recognize him. If it wasn't for the hair, I would not have known it was Dorian Holloway, a kid that came in at 180, 185,
yeah.
And he is gigantic now at 230, 235.
He's probably right around there, and it just as a young guy, we knew that recruiting class that we had taken some guys we believed were developmental. Everybody's developmental, but in some ways, guys that we believe have a really high ceiling, just going to be a year or two. The Metzes of the world,
yeah.
That length, got athletic ability. Dorian's one of those guys.
If he was 235 in high school,
yeah, or if he had played football
yeah.
as his main sport for his 4 years of high school, he would have been a lot different. He was more of a basketball guy that transferred schools to play football. So he's got a lot of football to learn. That's why spring is really, really big for him. Just the ability to play, learn, see what it's like, the speed of the game. But he's got a really, really big upside.
Secondary, got to feel pretty good about that. You stabilized at cornerback, finding Ahmad Gardner out of nowhere can be the boundary guy, moves Kobe back to the field. And then you develop really good depth behind them at the corner spot.
There's some competition there, not just Ahmad in the boundary, but Shepard is a guy that's going to be a big physical corner.
Yeah.
that might even have a higher ceiling than anybody else back there, just because of his size and speed. So he's going to play a lot of football for us, and in what ways we'll see. Obviously, Kobe moving back to the field. Arquan Bush, who's kind of played our nickel, who's been dinged up, but has really, really high end. Taj Ward is another guy that's played corner, played safety. He'll play nickel for us as well.
Justin.
And then Justin Harris, who played a little bit last year, probably could have played some more, but might be one of those guys. I would say if you ask me who to watch going into the spring, based on what he did through this winter and his energy and his ability to attack things, I would say Justin would be a guy I'm really excited to see how his spring goes, because he looks a lot different. Not just physically, he was always a kid put together and can run, but the mental makeup and his ability to attack things, from what I've seen in this winter through bowl practice into winter conditioning into spring, is a guy that I'd say I'm as excited about to see as anybody.
You get Wiggins back at safety. He's got to beat Hicks out, right? Hicks hit a really good year.
A lot of competition back there, and Brian Cook is a guy that nobody probably knows as much about.
The Predator.
Might be as good a football player as anybody we got. I mean, I know that he'll be on 4 special teams if he isn't a starter. He'll be on every single one of them, and you'll want him at multiple spots. So between Hicks and him and Wiggins and Derek Forrest, there's a lot of guys to play back there, and Dingle as well. I mean, we've got 5 guys that we truly believe. I probably wouldn't bat an eye at to say could be starters for us.
And then special teams, you get James Smith back.
Who's James? Who?
the guy with the microphone.
Oh, the guy with the microphone.
The guy that
keeps threatening that he's going to come up and bring the microphone up. Since I did some type of dance, I won't do it with him. But, he said instead he's going to bring the microphone up.
Place kicking, though, is that Cole Smith's to win? It's his. He's got the experience now. He's becoming a veteran guy.
Yeah. And we got to find a way. I mean, just like last year, we thought he was going to be that guy, and we brought somebody in to compete with him, and it made everybody better in the Carosa. But I look for Cole to be that guy. I mean, he showed us this past year every opportunity that he had. He did a great job. So I feel like that'll be it. But we got to find a way to create some competition to continue to push him to be better too.
And if James keeps bugging you, you're going to bring somebody in to push him.
Oh, we're going to definitely
literally push him.
Push him in many different ways. But it's just we're really fortunate to have not just him as a punter, but him to lead that unit and group of guys, and that's what gives us a chance. I know that it's going to help Cole immensely, just because there's a positive influence of a guy that that is really, really good friends with him. It's the same thing as we work on the new long snapper as well.
You want to dance us out?
I think we're good.
All right. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.